All right, hey, it's Chris from Racing Junk, and welcome to our webinar, Building Digital Business Partnerships and Making Them Work. I am part of the biz dev team here at Racing Junk. I deal with a lot of the day-to-day communications and the execution of the logistics. First off, thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate you guys hanging with us today. We actually love it. So this webinar is going to take place in 3 parts. One's going to be a quick slide and an overview of the business department, the business partnerships. Second's going to be a Q&A with 2 of our very special guests that we're excited about having. And lastly is going to be any question answer that you guys have. So if you do have anything, please let us know and we'll answer those at the end. We're kind of hoping for a couple things that you take away from this today. First off, one being the importance of partnerships, a little overview, some examples of things that have worked for us. And then lastly, firsthand experiences from our 2 guests that kind of can say how 2 partners, 2 or more places can come together for the common good, not just for their business, but for other things. And we're actually going to look at a couple of examples, one being the Max Attack giveaway that we're part of, and also USMA's toolkit and leadership programs that they've been killing it with during pre-pandemic and especially right now. So I think a safe place to start would be what are digital partnerships. So it's basically an online driven marketing collaboration between 2 or more businesses who share a target audience or service or message that will benefit both of their properties and hopefully, their audiences or / customers. There's multiple goals for this. Obviously, brand awareness, exposure, clicks, engagement, signups, merchandise, which are all great examples of future potential revenue. Racing Junk is very proud that we partner with over 50 plus people from all over the industry, from tracks and speedways to media moguls to nonprofits and women's organizations. So we have a wide spectrum of partnerships. So what we're going to kind of cover is why digital partnerships increase businesses' overall value, ways to create digital cross-promotional content that benefits both properties, and how digital partnerships offer an opportunity for multiple sectors of the industry to join forces for a common goal. So digital partnerships, increasing overall value. I'm going to kind of go through 3 bullet points, kind of simple. More exposure equals more possible revenue. This is very simple. Obviously, more audiences, more exposure to your brand, more opportunity for more people to know about your brand, and hopefully, either buy tickets or buy merchandise or sign up, membership, whatever your goal is. So it's a win-win for both parties. Second, a big one is real-time updates. This is huge right now, especially with the COVID crisis and the reopening of tracks and speedways, and also up-to-the-date information of government, mandates, or if they're willing to let states open. So it's a great way for 2 businesses to kind of promote awareness on topics that, get the information in real time. And then lastly is new business contacts, which is a very simple one, obviously, because that's one of the greatest things about the partnerships is that people are introduced to new people through the partnerships and can result in new business. All right, so I'm going to kind of go over 4 ways for creating digital content that works. Obviously, the goal of this is to get people to react and engage. There's 4 different types that I'm going to focus on real quick. 1 being email campaigns, 2 being social media, and 3 being original content. And then, and last one being website exposure, my bad. So when it comes to email campaigns, I always give about 4 pieces of advice, sorry. Call to action, make it easy what you want them to do, make it simple, make it bold. Exclusive promo codes, which works great in a relationship or a partnership, is that you offer exclusive discounts or exclusive deals for each other's audiences. More people are more likely to react to that. And then lastly, if it's possible, have geo-targeted or category-specific emails. So you really focus on where the information is going to, and it's very focused market, which obviously the results seem to be a little better. Social media comes to cross-promotional tag on posts, cross-promotional Facebook live video and interviews. Racing Junk, at least I can speak for ourselves, a great thing that we do in this regard is we do a lot of live footage at SEMA and PRI, and also, local shows as well. Obviously not in this time, but that's definitely something we do, and also do it with it for our advertisers as well. So also original content. A great example of this is webinars like this one, and also evergreen exclusive content, content that never goes out of style that you can constantly use for both sides. And then website exposure, obviously web banners, logo, link. This is kind of an example of a relationship that we have with IHRA Motorsports. It's a great drag partner of ours. This is kind of an example of call to action. Enter here, racingjunk.com, and Miller. It's kind of 3 brands all working together, exposure for all. This is kind of a social media post, though it actually is a social media post, of Tulsa Raceway and kind of update on tickets for the events. And then this is kind of us sharing information from USMA that brings together the industry. One of the great things that Sean's going to talk about in a little bit. It's an exclusive interview that Adriana did with him last week. So then lastly, we kind of have a cross-promotional effort with one of our great partners, Jim Beaver. This is kind of exposure for Racing Junk on their site. So yeah, as you can see the banners, and he's a, oops, sorry. Okay, so lastly, we're going to talk about kind of a cool thing about joint partnerships and their ability for joining different sectors of the industry together for a common good. A great example of this is currently a program that we're working on with a bunch of partners, Motul, USMA, and Car Chicks. It's kind of a grassroots initiative to give away a trailer. It's for a lucky grassroots racer. This is a prime example of working together for a common goal and support the industry. And that's kind of a nice segue to our Q&A with two very special guests that I'm excited to have. Actually, their faces. Sorry, guys.
Hey guys.
Hey guys, can you guys hear me? Sean, cool.
There we go.
All right, cool. All right, guys. Well, I want to welcome to the stage a good friend of Racing Junk and also the executive director of the United States Motorsports Association, Sean Stewart, and also Mark Meander. Did I mess that up?
Menadir, that's all right.
There we go. Who is the business development manager at Racing Junk. So welcome, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. So first off, I want to kind of tell the audience and me a little bit about what you guys do now, position wise. I know Mark, you're at Racing Junk, but tell the crowd a little bit what you do at USMA, Sean.
Yeah, so I wear a lot of hats here, but most of it revolves around just kind of overseeing. We work in 3 primary areas. One is unifying our industry, so getting more people into our database, which just strengthen numbers from our political work and advocacy work that we do. Then we do a lot of advocacy work, primarily on the state and local level. We back up groups like SEMA and things like that when it comes to national stuff, but we're really working with the grassroots tracks, series, that kind of thing. So in a time like this, where all of these issues are almost exclusively being handled at a state and local level, we're pretty equipped to do that. So, that's, I've been in the motorsports industry for 20 plus years, done a lot of different things, but all has been to some degree or another focused around building partnerships, marketing partnerships, and worked on all sides of sponsorship, from selling it to working as a consultant with businesses to help them figure out what to do within racing. So that's my background's always revolves around some form of a partnership.
Nice. What about you, Mark?
Well, hey, Sean, thanks for that, and thanks for being here today. And Chris, thanks for hosting.
Hey, by the way, sorry, I just realized I was just told that the slideshow didn't show, so I apologize, guys.
We can run through that real quick right before the Q&A.
Yeah.
We can do a recap. So as Chris mentioned, my name is Mark Menadir. I'm Business Development Manager with Racing Junk. And my primary mission is to create the very partnerships that Chris is talking about. And in normal times, I focus on tracks and sanctioning bodies and help them drive fans. Their concern is getting fans into the seat, promoting races, and we help them with that mission. And we've also driven some partnerships with some broadcast partners, and Chris has mentioned one of them, Jim Beaver, who's turned out to be an exceptional partner. And we also partner with some nonprofits. International Women's Motorsports Association is one of them. Vera is another one, the Vintage Auto Racing Association. So that is my primary mission, and each partnership is unique. We create partnerships that bring the maximum value to the table for each party, and so each one is unique. It contains different elements, but their basis, for the most part, is all in electronic media. There are other components that play a significant role as well. But it depends on the nuance of the relationship and what the goal of the specific entity is that we're engaging with. So you can imagine all the different variables at play. But the end game is for Racing Junk, our goal is to increase user acquisition as well as user engagement to bring more value to our paid advertisers and our other partners. And the goal for our partners varies. Some of them just want some more branding. Others want to actually have content that has a call to action, as Chris mentioned, like buy tickets, buy a ticket package, buy a season pass, attend this race, whatever the case may be. So that's me and what I do with Racing Junk.
Well, thank you, guys. I guess the next question, since we kind of went over what the partnership was, minus a slideshow, what do you guys think makes the most successful partnership work?
I'll let Sean go, and then I'll follow up.
Cool.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I think it's what you touched on a second ago, Chris. It's the win-win, and that's something that's easy to say, but it gets a little more complex to actually make it work and then to carry it through. As you know, living and breathing that stuff, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to actually go step by step and carry those partnerships through. But I think it's got to be a two-way street. You know, you can't enter a partnership looking for just what you need out of it. You've got to really understand your partner and what they're trying to get. And I think, you know, we've always had a great relationship with Racing Junk because we can pretty pointedly sit down and understand what each side's trying to get, and then work towards that goal. So I think as you enter a partnership, you know, that there's the old saying, God gave you two ears and one mouth, so listen twice as much as you talk. And I think it's important to understand your partner. You know, we sometimes, especially, you know, racers and in our industry, we kind of quickly jump to what we need, right? We need money, we need this, we need that. But I think any good partnerships really got to have a real genuine two-way street of what you need and being flexible. I mean, I know we've had partnerships with Motorhead Media, Racing Junk, that start out one way, and we've had a company that was involved with us, a third-party company, go out of business in the middle of it, and you have to be able to adapt and be flexible. And no better time like now than to say that. I mean, we can have a conversation right now about COVID-19, have the same conversation tomorrow morning. It'll be totally different as things are just changing by the hour. I mean, I'm getting texts coming in right now that are changing completely from conversations we had this morning. So being flexible, and I think, you know, really looking for that win-win, and then making sure you can truly deliver on that. You know, sometimes you get with someone, everyone's excited, and you almost add too much to it. I'm guilty of that in the past as well, but you got to really say, hey, what can we really deliver on? Where's somewhere to start and carry it through?
You know, well said, Sean, really well said. And you hit on all of the valid and important points in a partnership. And the first, I think, starts with communication. You know, as you mentioned very adeptly, that, you know, God gave us two ears and one mouth for a reason. So we have to have a strong line of communication, open line of communication with our partner. We have to understand our partner's goals. First and foremost, we can't deliver on things that we don't know what we're supposed to be delivering, right? We have to understand our partner's capabilities. I often tell our partners, hey, listen, we've got a lot of resources at our disposal here at Racing Junk. If you're not capable of X, Y, or Z, we're happy to pitch in and help. So understanding their capabilities and their limitations, especially now when a lot of our partners have either furloughed or laid off or just having to let people go. We're having to make a shuffle here and there, and as Sean mentioned, adaptability. Nothing we do is written in stone. We change courses middle of the stream with partners all the time, and any number of things happen. Tracks change hands, directors change at series and sanctioning bodies, and other staffing changes. Venues change with particular races, especially now. So Sean, you hit on all the important elements: understanding, communication, flexibility, and being dependable. We depend on our partners to deliver certain things, and they depend on us, and that is definitely a two-way street. And that, in a nutshell, I think is what make partnerships work.
Great answers, guys. I guess since you guys both kind of brought it up, do you guys mind sharing a little experience of what you guys have adapted the whole partnership relationship, obviously, to the COVID crisis going on right now?
Yeah, for us, it's kind of something to not assume. We wake up in this twilight zone every day, and just can't assume that. We have partners right now, corporate partners of ours, and some that don't involve money that are just trade partners. Some are doing great. Some are actually thriving in business right now, and we didn't assume that until we communicate. So it comes back to what Mark said. Good communication right now is key. A lot of our leadership teams and coalitions that are meeting, there's a lot of discussion around sponsors. Some are just moving things already into 2021, but some are still finding ways to do things. We have a racetrack in Arizona that's had a major partnership with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Enterprise Rent-A-Car doesn't have anywhere to put their rental cars right now, so they have 5,000 cars parked at the racetrack. And that is essentially fulfilling the sponsorship agreement for the year. So You can't assume. You could assume that you might lose that sponsor, or you might, learn something new. I think it comes back to, what Mark said. Good communication is key right now, and not assuming that, everybody's, falling off into the deep end. It's a different situation for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different situation for everybody. And as Sean mentioned, some of our partners are doing extremely well right now, where a lot of our tracks and sanctioning bodies and individual standalone races are struggling. They have no dates. Their status has changed. And with all that said, their message has changed. So Chris knows full well. In fact, he is the one that's in contact with all these partners, making sure that we either have the most contemporary message they want delivered, or what their change in messaging is based on venue changes, date changes, any number of other things. And one of the things that Andriana Ditton, who is our editor-in-chief, introduced was a status page. We have a page dedicated on RacingJunk.com. I believe it is called Businesses That Are Open, and it gives the status, exact detailed status of some of the partners and advertisers that wanted to post or took the time to post, how they're conducting business, if it's online or over the phone, or if they're actually taking customers physically, if they're brick and mortar, what their hour, all these details. So adapting now and changing messaging and staying on top of messaging, as Chris knows. I mean, that's a part of a big part of his role right now as business development facilitator. That's what he does. So changing messaging and staying on top of the current focus is really key right now.
Cool. So I have about 2 more questions, and then that will do it. You know, I want to focus a little bit on the digital aspect of the partnerships a little bit. If you guys could talk about your experience, what has worked for you guys, whether it's social, email, or any other example, you know, post pandemic and now, and maybe like suggestions that you think maybe it's going to happen in the future, or any insight you have on that.
Yeah, I think, you know, we have realized something that's been going on for a long time, kind of right under our industry, and maybe didn't fully come to terms with it. But, you know, when I was a kid, you know, you had 5 TV channels on TV and no internet, you know, and you waited for the morning newspaper to find out what in the heck was going on in the world. And today, we don't have a central media source. We don't have a source. People are, so to speak, hanging out in a lot of different places. So, you know, you've got Racing Junk, for example. People are there to buy and sell and trade, but really you've got millions coming there to that community, if you will. So we've had to rely heavily, especially with things changing so quickly, and getting information out to as many people as we can through our digital partners. So you guys at Racing Junk have been great. Speed Sport, those that have, and then really a lot of our niche sites that are out there, and little pockets of the industry. We kind of like to say motorsports is the nation, right? But then you have all these different forms of racing that are much like states. And then within those, there's different lingo, different cultures, that kind of thing. Drag racing has a whole different language than, say, off-road. So we've had to reach out to all of those partners that we have in all those pockets to really get a central message out. There's no click of the button place. So, and then we're all locked at home. So we relied on some of that, of going to trade shows, going to race events, seeing people, those kinds of things. All of that is shut off. So it's absolutely been 100% critical to have these partnerships in place. And thank goodness for you guys and Andriana for interviewing us and getting the message out. We have to be in tune with those communities. So if you're a business and you're trying to get your message out about how you're going to rise out of the ashes, so to speak, having those digital partners in place is key.
Well said, Sean, and you deal with such a diverse community of racers from every stripe of racing, from drag to drift and off-road and everything in between. And one of the things we know is that the demographic is as diverse as the number and types of racers that there are. And with that said, you know, when Chris and I talk with a potential partner, one of the things we consider when we're putting together the elements of the campaign is his demographic as well as his geo. Where is he located? So with regard to the demographic, what type of media does that demo typically respond well to, right? And where do they hang out, so to speak? Is it on social media? If so, which platform? Because you can name, you know, half a dozen very, very popular. There are 3 that we primarily use, which are Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The Facebook being the most popular. And it seems the demographic is growing older in the Facebook crowd, because now the youngsters are going more toward the Twitter and the Instagram. So demographics plays a huge role in how we select messaging for some of the very reasons that Sean talked about. You know, it's where do the off-road guys hang out versus where the oval track guys hang out are 2 different places. And where they look for information. But they do share one thing in common. Right? They all visit Racing Junk, and they all, if they're a series or a sanctioning body, they want to be a part of USMA as well, I'm sure.
We hope so. And then lastly, you know, we plugged a little bit of our, you know, COVID-19 resource page, but I know, Sean, that's a big thing that you've been working on, specifically with the tracks and the government aspect. Can you kind of just brief us on that? Because I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we went to work pretty quickly. Our government affairs director, Robert, right when states started getting shut down, um, you know, he very quickly said racing is going to get put to the back of the line, and we've got to lead the way, not follow. And what he meant by that was we've got to start arming tracks with knowledge. And so we put together what we called the COVID-19 toolkit. It's up on our webpage. You can go to saveracing.com is the easiest way to get there. The top of the page, the button, there's no fees or anything like that. It's out there for everyone to use. There's a 5-step plan on how to contact your local officials. A lot of our industry has never done that. Some have, and they don't have a great relationship there. So there's even an explanation there of if you have a bad relationship, what to do. If you have no relationship, what to do. So you go through that step, and then there's also all kinds of templates and information you can use, guidelines. We formed a lot of what we call leadership teams right away. These are stakeholders, real stakeholders, major tracks, major series in our country, and the owners of those getting together. We're on weekly calls. I'd say 90% of us, including myself, barely knew what Zoom was a month ago. This is my 5th Zoom call today. So we're all connecting in that way. And it's been one of the positives of this has been seeing our industry really come together and cross-pollinate. We have a drag racing group that is, you know, it's no nonsense. I mean, we all know we get at a trade show and we all chit chat and bench race and all that kind of stuff. But this has been really getting together and getting stuff done. So those groups have come up with some best practices. We even have a media one for media folks that are coming to events and how to handle that. We've put all those guidelines up on the site, and they're guidelines. You know, it doesn't mean our motocross one is very, very in depth. Doesn't mean you have to do all those things, but we want you know, folks communicating with their local officials. I've met with more health inspectors and doctors and scientists in the last couple of months. When we talk about partnerships, it's like, you have to understand.
Who would have thought, you know?
Yeah, who would have thought? Who would have thought it'd be, you know? And a lot of it's just the same thing we're talking about here. It's education and trying to you know, educate them on events. We do have a success story. Last weekend, Tulsa Raceway Park ran an event with fans. That was a huge step. It was like it was the landing on the moon of motorsports coming back. They did it right. They worked with their local officials all the way up to the governor. They were approved at 50% of their grandstands. They actually started out at 25% and then kind of eased their way up. Never went over 40%. Put a lot of rules into place, a lot of work.
Nice.
It made national news and in a positive way. So we're trying to get those positive stories out there, and that's key with our digital partnerships is getting a positive message for motorsports. We've got some rogue operators that are doing some things that they probably shouldn't be doing, and it's not working out well, but that isn't the majority. So we're trying to get us organized, get some resources out there. But again, it is changing every day. It started off as resources for the Paycheck Protection Program and things like that, and that's ancient history now. It's getting the guidelines, it's getting with your governments, and now we're seeing a shift in the country in general of wanting to reopen, and how do we do that? How do we do that safely? And you know, we're just day by day here.
Based on your like experiences with scientists and stuff, what's your opinion? Do you think it's time to do that, or what's your kind of, if you don't mind sharing?
You know, the majority of the folks, you know, I'm not a scientist, and you know, kind of I sit somewhere in. Of course, we've got to get racing open again. We got to get our country open again. Otherwise, you know, there's going to be a much bigger problem for all of us. Sadly, we have some tracks that are right on the edge right now of saying we're going to close and never reopen. They're paycheck to paycheck kind of tracks. At the same time, we can't, you know, burst open and have something bad happen and have all that come back on motorsports too. So what I hear in a general sense from most doctors and scientists is to, less contact. However we can be in less contact with each other, the better. You get the doctor perspective, and it kind of brings you down. It makes you think, yeah, we should all crawl in a cave and
Yeah. We're
hide.
never going to leave our houses again.
Yeah, and just, wait till this thing's up. I mean, in their eyes, it's kind of like we shouldn't come out until there's a cure. And they're probably right, but they come from that perspective. So we've tried to really have a broad perspective. We wanted that. We have folks from Homeland Security on our groups, and they're saying there may be a day, just like there was a day when I went to concerts, there was no security or anything. You just, you got
Yeah, I was thinking about that, like public events. Are they going to do like testing before you go in? And then if you can't go, what do you just have to leave,
That's possible. There are billions of dollars going towards testing. So there may be a rapid test where you come in, you go through security, and your next step is there's 15 lanes potentially done by Homeland Security where you do a quick rapid test. I know our motocross group, they are actually going to have a tent at every event that if they take your temperature and their symptoms or you're over, they're not just going to tell you to leave. They're actually going to put you in a quarantine tent and then call professionals to extract you home, kind of thing. So there's a lot being thought of. I mean, I think we all know we need to reopen. We all want to do it right. And as an organization, we want to do that too. It's just trying to take all those perspectives and then build a good plan to ease back into it. And we're seeing NASCAR go back racing this weekend. Supercross just announced they're going to be having events in Salt Lake, and those are going to be good tests. And when we look at the grassroots side, I can tell you with NASCAR, no fans, but there'll still be over 2,000 people in the pit area. So we're looking at that closely and hoping it goes well, because that opens the door for
The next steps.
the small tracks to run test and tunes and practice and eventually get fans back in the stands.
Cool. So I guess I'm being told we got to wrap it up, but I guess if anyone has any questions, now's the time. We got a 40-minute Zoom, so we're on a budget.
Sorry, didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. Yeah, actually, those are great answers. It's really awesome what you're doing, especially in the regard to like tracks and speedways and stuff, because that's like obviously something that we deal with, and it's super hard because a lot of them aren't open, so it's like definitely something that I feel maybe not on a day-to-day level, but definitely talking with them,
Well, it also gives us and the average race fan or someone who has not had the experience that Sean has had, some insight into the behind the scenes of what's going on and all the efforts being put forth to make things safe again. I had no clue that Homeland Security was working with some of our race partners. I had no clue.
Lots going on, lots that I would have never imagined I'd be involved in or talking to, but listen, we've got a couple of doctors on our group that are doctors, scientists, researchers, and they're also racers. So it's been helpful to have, a lot of minds all coming together.
Sure. Yeah, different perspectives are always beneficial, especially in a scenario like we're facing.
Cool. Well, first off, thanks, Sean, for coming. We really appreciate it. And thank you for all you're doing for the industry. We love that. And thank you, Mark. And thank you, everyone who attended. So maybe we'll be doing this again.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
Talk soon, Sean. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.